my dream is this. No, before I did this, I used to be a history teacher. And so don't judge, but I used to be a history teacher, and I love the study of history. And when I study history, here's what I learned. That the relationship between employer and employee is, for the most part, adversarial. Like from the pyramids on down. For the feudal system, everything was, I'm the employer, I have all the resources, you employee get to serve me until I'm done with you. And as soon as I become dissatisfied with you, you're out the door, and good luck trying to survive. And that's been, now, obviously we've evolved to the point where it's a little bit more amicable than that, where we're nice to people, we understand the value of that. And when you look at the early American Revolution, we look at the early industrial age, and even through the age of leadership that we've just passed through, we see this kind of evolution of employers understanding that to value their employees at a different level actually doesn't just a nice thing to do, but it actually works economically. That employees who are cared for actually produce better, just like fields that are taken care of produce better. Now, it's not the only reason we should be nice to people, but it kind of works out nice in a nice way because it's a capitalistic benefit to do it. And so my dream is this. See, I believe that the next evolution, the next step in us moving towards a different relationship between employer and employees will go something like this. Employee, listen, I understand you're a human being, and I see you that way, not as some cog in my machine. I see you as a human being, and I care about you. Not about the fact that you can serve me, but about you as a person, as an individual, and about your dreams. Now, if you're interested, I'm doing something really big over here, and if you want to align your services with mine, I think we could do even bigger things. Would that be okay if we create an alliance together? This is what LinkedIn founders called it. They created an alliance with an employee, and that alliance is then able to go conquer big things. Does that make sense? So my dream is to impact that conversation, not just at Infusionsoft where I work, but across the globe. And as business owners who will soon have, maybe you have a few employees now, but we'll soon have hundreds, some of you, I hope that you kind of catch the spirit of that as well. And so in order to understand, now when we talk about dreaming, and I think dreaming is going to be a big part of this new evolution, but when I talk about dreaming, it's maybe different than a lot of people do. So I want to define what dreaming means. Is that okay? Kind of nod, if that's okay. Yes, sure. Thank you. All right. So when we talk about dreaming, here's what we mean. And in order to understand dreaming, first I have to tell you what dreaming is not. So dreaming is not our default way of doing things. See, as human beings, we are biologically hardwired to do the same stuff over and over and over again. So think for example, of the deer wandering down to the water. So if the deer wanders down to the water, it gets a drink of water, wanders back, doesn't die, what does it do next time? Which path does it take? Same path. And if it takes the same path the next day, it doesn't die, eventually, over time, what does it create? It creates a little rut in the ground. And that rut in the ground becomes not just a way to go, it becomes the way to go. And that deer becomes married to that way. In fact, over time, it will tell its children, its little deerlets will say, you have to go down this path or else you'll die. And eventually the deerlets are telling their kids, and pretty soon it's the only path until the hunter finds it, and then they're all dead. Right? And so we, as human beings, have that same biological propensity to create normalcy. It's the way our brains like to do it. It's just the efficiency of our brains. We like to create normal, predictable, and repeatable patterns so we can think less. Because see, our brains are a little bit lazy, and they'd rather not think than think. That makes sense, right? Just like our muscles are like, we have to kind of tell them to do stuff. And so as a result, we create for ourselves a sphere of ways of doing things, a default way of living. And as much as we don't want to, no matter where we are in life, we create that default. Now, all of our defaults are different. For some things, for you, it's just totally normal to buy Lamborghinis. For me, it's not totally normal to buy Lamborghinis. So we all have different scopes and scales of this default, but we all have one, no matter who we are, no matter where we are. Now, there's a distinction, however, between what we call reasonable. So we're like, all right, so this is what's reasonable. There's a distinction between what's reasonable and what is possible in our own minds. And I've discovered this is true with almost everyone. So for example, I would really like to own a Tesla. Everyone know what a Tesla is? And does anyone know how much a Tesla costs? It's somewhere between $80,000 and $120,000, depending on if you get all the bells and whistles. And I would like to buy one, and you can buy them online. Now, do I believe that that's possible? Yeah, for all of us, that's possible to buy a Tesla. Even if only theoretically possible. It's like, yeah, I suppose if the money showed up in my pocket, I could buy one, right? But even if theoretically possible, it's possible. But is it reasonable for us to buy Teslas? Is it something we just the way we do our lives? Now, for some of us, it is. For others, it's more like, no, it's reasonable for me to buy a Honda Civic with low miles, and it gets good gas mileage. Now, Teslas get incredible gas mileage, by the way. So, in other words, here's a little data point out here in this realm of possible that is impossible but not unreasonable. And a dream is defined, we defined a dream as something that is possible but not reasonable, doesn't live in our default, that is desirable. Something that I want, that I don't have, that's not happening for me or going to happen naturally, that is possible. Now, what's not possible? Well, it's hard to say that because we don't really know because we hang out here too often. So we would have to go explore ways before we could figure out if something wasn't possible. And so why then are we interested in having employees dream? Why do we spend a bunch of money and we spend a bunch of time at Infusionsoft helping people to accomplish both personal and professional dreams? And it's because of this. Because when I get to the edge of this line, we've all felt this, especially entrepreneurs, you guys feel this all the time. You get to the edge where it's like, all right, never done that before. That's never been a part of my life. Whoa, and you feel that little sinking in your stomach and a little confusion in your brain. Well, when we get to that point and then we cross it and we go accomplish a dream, we go accomplish whatever it is in our lives that we set out to do, what happens to our circle of default? What happens to our reasonable? It gets bigger. It gets bigger. And as it gets bigger, right, we now then are a different person. We've actually transformed as a human being. And all of a sudden, this dream that seemed really impossible is like just on the horizon. And this one out here that seemed really hard isn't that unlikely. I had somebody tell me the other day, as soon as I started dreaming, going out to accomplish dreams, things that before seemed impossible now seem possible. Those things that seemed possible now seem likely. Those things that seem likely now seem inevitable. Because they've expanded their circle of what's possible. And so, this makes sense. As soon as, if I go get this one, then I go track down this one, I get bigger still. So the reason we're interested in having people dream at Infusionsoft is because of this distance. So what's different then between the guy who started here and the guy who ended here? What's different? I'm going to actually have you participate now. So where you raise your hand and give comments.
Bigger radius.
It's a bigger radius. Thank you for that, Captain Obvious. All right, what else?
Confidence.
What do you mean?
Confidence.
Confidence. So they were striding about their lives with more confidence. What else?
You reached a goal.
They reached their goal. So there are certain landmarks, things that they've accomplished, pictures they've taken they wouldn't have taken before.
They can share their experience with others.
They become teachers, mentors, and the collective brain trust of their group is increased. Any others?
Less fear.
Less fear.
Happier, have pride.
Happier, pride, stand a little taller, walk a little taller. You've met these people. Some of you are these people, right? When we are able to go out and accomplish things. So at Infusionsoft, it's kind of fun to think, man, I'd rather have these employees than these employees. How many of you would rather have these employees than these employees? Some of you wouldn't, but that's okay, I understand. Some of you don't have arms, one of the two. Right, so we would rather have these employees than these employees too. So why do we dream at Infusionsoft? Because we care about our people. That's why, that's the real why. And we don't get distracted from that, but it sure has a cool capitalistic benefit to our company if we get more of these people than of these people. Let me give you an example. So we had often we'll gather together as teams and I'll teach these principles and we'll invite people to dream. Now if you're not in the habit of dreaming, this can be a kind of a scary proposition. To write down things that aren't a part of your default because all of the animal part of you that says stay safe, don't do stupid stuff, don't leave the path kind of gets a little nervous. So we sit down with them and we have these awesome sessions. They start writing dreams. And one particular young man in our organization, his dream was to own a PlayStation 4. None of you seem impressed. Well, again, we can't judge the dream too much because my circle is different than his circle. And so for him, that was a big thing. That was a thing that he wasn't sure how he was going to do it. It certainly wasn't going to happen just by him living his life. He had to go create it intentionally. And so even with the PlayStation 4, I'm interested in him learning how to create intentionally because that makes a better employee and because that makes him happy. And so he went and created this. And by the way, it didn't take very long. Once he got started and got deliberate and got intentional, it took him about 3 weeks. And we met together again, and I sat down with him, I said, all right, so what's the dream that's out there that would be scary? Like, what's the one that would really intimidate you? And then he got a little serious, and he said, do you know what? To be honest, my wife and I are thinking about having kids. And I said, you have a wife that allowed you to have a PlayStation 4? And he said, we're thinking about having kids, and my wife works right now, and I would love to give her the opportunity to choose not to work if she didn't want to. And I said, how much more do you need to make? He said, double. And I said, is that how much you want or how much you need? See, we even with our dreams, sometimes we just shortchange ourselves. We only say, well, I might be able to go out here. That seems maybe within my range of what's possible. And I said, is that how much you want or is that how much you need? He said, that's how much I need. I said, how much do you want? He said, triple. I said, when do you want it? He said, I want it this year. I said, you want to triple your income this year? And I said, do you still want to work at Infusionsoft? He said, yes, I want to work at Infusionsoft and triple my income. Now, if you're in a job and your employee came to you and said, I want to triple my income, that's a bit difficult, right? And so we went to work. And literally in a year, it's been a year and 2 months since that time. What do you think? Did he get it? Well, it wouldn't make a very good story if he didn't, right? So he came up $100 short. Oh man, what a shame. So he came up $100 short. In the process, he started a business. He came to own another business. And so that's the outside stuff that happened. But not only that, but while he was working in Infusionsoft, he earned 2 separate promotions with pay increases. All because he started to recognize that he was capable of accomplishing and creating more in his life. Because he became a this guy and not a this guy. And do you know what his next dream is?
Stay married.
Stay married. Not stay married. His next dream is to build a city. He wants to create a city where entrepreneurs can live in a rural setting, be totally plugged into the internet, and have an ideal setting for entrepreneurial living. Will he do it? I don't know. But that's the kind of guy that's now showing up at Infusionsoft. Does that make sense? So for us, we're very interested, and this is why I feel like in an information age where we're constantly competing for talent, that not only can I deliver some care and love and concern for an employee, but we also get a much better employee as a result. And so we're not going to talk about it now, but we'll talk more. You know, if we want to stick around, we can talk more about how we do this organizationally, how this shows up in our company, how we have put it together so that people will accomplish dreams more consistently, because there's only one of me and there's 700 employees here at Infusionsoft, but we have ways that we're using and leveraging to have all of our employees participate in that. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, thanks guys.